Welcome to the UK Dementia and Palliative Care Conference 2025 podcast, brought to you by Rowcroft Hospice. Recorded at the beautiful Buckfast Abbey Conference Centre in Devon, this series explores the critical role of dementia and palliative care in supporting those living with dementia. Across these episodes, we'll be sharing expert insights, real-life experiences, and innovative approaches to improving care. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get started. Implementing Namaste Care, a sensory approach in advanced dementia, facilitated by Faith Frost, Research Associate, and Nicola Jacobson-Wright, Dementia Practice Development Coach, Association for Dementia Studies, University of Worcester.
Welcome everybody. We're really excited to be able to talk to you about Namaste Care. My name's Nicola Jacobson-Wright. I work for the University of Worcester. Most of my work at the Association for Dementia Studies is teaching, but often my teaching has been linked with research projects, and Namaste Care was one of those projects.
Yeah, and I'm Faith Frost, and I'm a researcher at the Association for Dementia Studies. I've also got my own lived experience. I've supported my grandparents who have both had dementia to the end of their lives. Namaste is a really important project to me because I was doing that alongside researching Namaste Care.
Okay, so if anyone has not come across Namaste Care, in terms of the background of where it's come from, it was this lovely lady, Joyce Simard, who first created the concept. And you can read her book if you want to find out more about her original ideas. She's based in the USA. And she essentially came up with this idea because she was very involved in creating different social activities and opportunities for people with dementia within care settings in the US. And what she was aware of was that there were a population of people within those care settings that weren't managing to engage with those activities. And those were people maybe who would be brought into the space where those activities were happening, but perhaps were falling asleep, confused, not necessarily understanding what was happening. They might have been calling out. Perhaps people who would not have been invited in because of some of the complexities of their needs. So quite often this is a population, and probably any of you who work within care settings might be able to picture those people who maybe spend a lot of time in their room, who are moved to the quiet lounge, or spend time in a corridor, or generally somewhere where they're going to be perhaps less disruptive, or where we're not reminded of the fact that we find it a bit hard to interact with that person. And I think for me, being introduced to Namaste Care suddenly made me think of all those people that I'd worked with within care homes, and kind of shone a light on the fact that even in care homes where we're doing a fantastic job of supporting people and looking after people, and perhaps doing really well at meeting their physical health needs, that people's emotional, social and psychological needs as dementia advances become harder for us to meet. And Namaste Care was Joyce's answer to this. And we're going to talk to you about a couple of different research projects that we've done related to Namaste Care. But we were so blown away after our first project with the work that was produced by the care homes, our case study care homes, that we got some additional funding to create a little film showcasing a couple of those care homes and what they did. So we're going to show you a short version of that now.
Namaste Care is a structured way of really supporting people who are living with advanced dementia. It originated in the United States, and the word Namaste is a Hindu saying which means to honour the spirit within.
Namaste Care is a sensory intervention, so it's really important to pay attention to all the different senses, and both in terms of the different things that are used within Namaste Care, but also how people are managing to respond to those.
And we've pretty good evidence now to suggest that this Namaste Care improves people's quality of life, and it decreases that sense of agitation that can sometimes accompany dementia. And for other people, it stimulates them, so it perhaps helps us to reach those people who might otherwise be quite locked in to their emotional state.
I think the important thing is that it almost takes people out of themselves, because I think people with severe dementia can get very quiet and withdraw, if you like, so it's difficult to get through to them. So I suppose it's a way of reaching out to people and for them to reach out to the outside world.
My wife Valerie has her hands massaged, which I feel is so important. The human touch is so important.
coming into their Namaste room every morning for quite a number of weeks, it's taken the aggression away.
Namaste Care doesn't take any extra staff. It's about the reorganisation of staff and involving them in doing activities rather than just an activity coordinator.
It's just so warm and it's lovely. I would really recommend implementing it in your care home.
So we were granted funding from the Alzheimer's Society, which was an implementation grant. So we worked on it for 3 years, and we explored the implementation process of Namaste Care within 6 UK care homes, because this was 7 years ago, so we knew what was working in the US, but we wanted to see how we could translate it into the UK. And we explored the impact and experiences of Namaste Care from the perspective of residents, staff, but also families. So we established the theory behind it, and we learnt from what had already been done. We implemented Namaste Care in our 6 case study care homes, and we looked at kind of the cost benefit of Namaste Care, how much it would actually cost for care homes to implement it. We involved people living with dementia and families. We had people living with dementia and families come into the sessions and provide us with feedback. And then we developed an online community of practice for Namaste Care practitioners, so they could share what they'd been up to, what had worked, what hadn't worked. Sadly, our funding ran out for that, which always happens in research. So that online community of practice is no more, but we've now got kind of like a blog page where we update things. So just an overview of sort of the key elements of Namaste Care. Some of you might be familiar, some of you might not. Ideally, it's daily sessions of Namaste Care, so 1.5 to 2 hours, once or twice daily. So if possible, to make a dedicated Namaste Care space, thinking about sensory elements, not somewhere that you're kind of just putting things in and then moving it and having to, so it's actually somewhere in your home. So having a dedicated Namaste worker for that individual session, based on your usual staff to resident ratio, so it's not supposed to take any additional staff. Thinking about comfort, skincare, food and drink, nutrition and hydration, using it as an opportunity. And then thinking about the 5 senses, so with a real emphasis on the use of therapeutic touch. And you probably saw in the film lots of people having hand massages. You've got some cream on your tables if you want to put some on your hands. And so it's about using a whole team approach, making sure that everybody in your team is educated, not just some people, so you can really embed that into your care.
Okay, I'm going to use this opportunity just to hand around. I don't know whether people have come across the hug before. Okay, but if anyone hasn't, if you want to have a hug, and we'll pass the hug around us.
So the session structure is you set up your Namaste room, so thinking about lighting, temperature, music, ensure you've got everything prepared, so unusual foods and drinks. Some people did kind of themed sessions, welcoming every individual, using people's names, making sure that you can really give that essence of a start and a finish to the session, making people feel comfortable, so thinking about what we were talking about earlier and what we heard about earlier, assessment of pain, offering repeated food and drink opportunities, hand massage, sensory interactions, and then bringing elements of nature in. So cues for the season, daffodils, daisies, leaves. One of our care homes, I think, brought some snow in for people to touch. And then just observing and responding and giving people that, dedicated time that they deserve. On that, in that quite intimate, scenario. And then closing the session with individual thank yous and goodbyes. Is there anything you want to add to that, Nicola?
I think just in terms of the observing and responding, I think when I was first introduced to Namaste Care, one of the things that really struck me was just the idea of bringing people together in a group, and that there is a sort of time efficiency in that actually if you're going to individual people's bedrooms and you've got 5 minutes for each person, there's a limited amount that you can do, but actually if you bring 6 people into a space and then you have that 5 minutes but you're there in the group, you have an opportunity to see how people are. You've got a lot more time to do that. So it's sort of one-to-one, but in a group. And I think there's something about that with Namaste Care that's, it's very sort of sensible. It makes sense.
So just to jump to, I guess, our key findings. So 5 of our 6 care homes implemented for 3 months or more. One of our care homes, there was a change in management, and I'm later going to speak a little bit about the importance of management. So it was found to be as useful for residential homes and as for nursing homes, although we did see more of an impact marked in nursing homes. A dedicated room significantly helps with the implementation. And I think consideration into designing that room and creating it something everybody feels proud of. So groups of 4 to 8 residents was kind of the optimal number, depending on the size of the room. Some people had quite large rooms, some people had smaller. 2 sessions a day was probably, as you would have expected, quite hard for people to maintain. Some people did, but it did seem that 1 session seemed sufficient for impact. Practical and genuine leadership from management is required from the outset. And it was our criteria that people had stable management to actually be involved in the study. So changes in management, that was an issue in one of the care homes, and they weren't able to continue it because of that. It doesn't take extra staff, but it does take reorganisation of staff, and investing in that and thinking about it in planning will pay off. It's got to be seen as a care intervention, not an activity. We had some care homes saying, we'll get our activity staff to do it. The idea is that it's embedded into people's practice, not just as an activity. So there was an impact for residents. So obviously we were looking at people with more advanced dementia, and that was judged subjectively on the existing resident group. And we were looking at, do these people have their emotional and social needs met elsewhere? So there was a decrease in agitation achieved over the 12 weeks of implementing it, and it was maintained. There was an increase in quality of life, so achieved in 12 weeks and maintained. And there was no impact on medication, falls, or hospital admissions. So we collected all of that data together and analysed it. And we did find that there was an increased alertness, awareness, communication, fluid intake, and weight gain. And we did lots of observations in the homes and in the sessions. We collected lots and lots of data, which just swamped us. So I'd need another hour to go into that, I'm afraid. So just a comparison of resident experience, so taken from our observations. So this is Dee. So Dee is sitting in the high back chair in her room, night dress on and dressing gown over the knees. She crossed her feet, her hands fusses with the collar of her night dress, then up to her hair. Her body language seems agitated, activated. Her eyes are open and she is repeating, "Please help me, Lord, please help me, Lord," over and over, non-stop for the next 15 minutes. So this is Dee in a Namaste Care session. She's brought into the room in a wheelchair by staff and transferred into a large armchair. She's repeatedly saying, "Please help me, Lord, please help me, Lord." No pauses, just over and over again. Namaste worker comes over and kneels down near her and puts her arms around her, hugging her firmly and closely. She is soothing her, stroking her arm and whispering "shh, shh" quietly into her ear. Towards the end of the minute, Dee quietens down and stops saying, "Please help me, Lord." She closes her eyes, she remained like this, occasionally looking around for over an hour. And that was an observation that I took. And I think it's had a real lasting impact on me in my research, I guess, moving forward. So this was a lovely quote from a Namaste Care worker. She said, but the really lovely one that really got to the essence of Namaste, that really did touch me, was a lady who has died now. We managed to get her up because she was downstairs, and we managed to get her up for a session, and she was absolutely transfixed by it. She just glowed, you know, and 2 days later she died. But the thing is, if it's at the end of life, at the end point of life, we did it for her, and that was huge. That was huge, and I thought, wow, this is quite something. What we really needed ultimately to do, we have done for this lady, and I was so pleased for her.
So having completed the research project that Faith has just talked about and where the video was produced, we continued to get lots of interest in Namaste Care, and we continued to provide training and education on Namaste Care. That was mainly something that I was doing. So I was delivering workshops based on the same training that we'd used within the research project. And those were in person. And then when COVID kindly came along, we transferred those to being online, and obviously had to think very creatively about how we were going to how people were able to implement Namaste Care or a version of it within those sorts of restrictions. And the feedback that I had from the online workshops was very positive, but I sort of had a little niggle in my head for quite a long time that I felt like this could be done a little bit better. My feeling was that delivering a one-day workshop where people go away and they feel inspired and the feedback's very positive, between that and actually being able to put it into practice, I just wondered how easy was that going to be to happen. And my feeling was that if you're trying to implement something like Namaste Care, having somebody kind of walking alongside you while you're trying to put it into practice would be better. And so I wanted to try and create something that was still online so that people could access it, because that's clearly become a very popular way for people to be able to learn, but that they could do it over a long enough period that they could start doing some learning, start implementing, come back, do some more learning and reflect and kind of go through that process. And so basically that's where this project came from. And we managed to get some funding from Marie Curie to be able to enable this to happen. And we wanted to both develop an online course and also to be able to pilot it with a group of people and get some feedback about, kind of evaluate how that went, so that we could create this product that had an evidence base to it from the research that we've done and then from trialling this. Although we had some expertise within our team, I really wanted to kind of go out there. There's some fantastic people doing amazing work around Namaste Care now. It's just like, I feel like it's sort of exploded quite quickly, which has been really lovely to be part of. And so we worked closely with a newly formed charity called NEAR, Namaste Education and Resources, a group of people that are very passionate about sustainability of Namaste Care, which it's kind of like one of those tricky things, like anything, where it's, people can get things off the ground, but can you keep maintaining it within your setting? So people like Min Stackpool, who's a palliative care nurse, has been running Namaste Care sessions and teaching about it for many, many years, was originally based at St Christopher's Hospice. Fiona Irvin and Lorna Reid, who are based in different hospices in Scotland. We had a care home manager as part of our steering group. We had a lady living with dementia who's also cared for both of her parents. We had 2 family members as well. So we had a kind of like quite a rich steering group of people with all sorts of different experience that they could bring to this. And it meant that when we were creating the course, we asked all of those different people that were involved in our steering group to contribute to the materials, so that then again, we've got this really rich education resource of people who are pain specialists, people who are palliative care specialists, people who are, specialise in person-centred dementia care, people who can talk about what it feels like to have dementia, what it's like to care for somebody, so that as part of this course, you get all of those different perspectives and get to hear from different people. So we created the course. Because it's online, it's very flexible, so people can access lots of the learning materials. We sort of reveal things a week at a time. People can access those learning materials in their own time. And then once a week, we were coming together and having a live online session where people could talk together and reflect and talk about their experiences that they'd had so far. We had 7 care homes involved, and we invited 2 people from each of those care homes. Now, because of our knowledge already of implementing pretty much anything in a care context. We know it's important to have management on board, so we said that those 2 places need to be somebody who was senior, ideally somebody from the management team, and somebody who is part of the direct care or activity team. Lots of places asked us if they could have several more places, but of course we were limited. We wanted to make sure that those live online sessions, that they weren't too crowded. We wanted people to be able to have discussions. So that's how we set it up. We did manage to recruit care homes across Scotland, Wales and England, and we had a combination of different types of homes, which was relatively impressive considering it was pretty small scale. So our key findings, essentially what we found was that people started without the knowledge of Namaste Care, and then they developed that knowledge, that they also developed confidence and skills in being able to implement. I would say of those 7 care homes, not all of them were fully engaged with the training. Not all of them managed to implement, and that's pretty much correlating. As you can imagine, those people that didn't engage and attend fully all the training also didn't then follow through and implement. But those people that did, were managing to do create some lovely work. As well as like a pre and post course survey, we also did a focus group where we invited some of the people that had been involved in the course to talk to us about what the experience had been like being on the course. And we separated that out. So I didn't interview those people in the focus group because obviously I'd been the person teaching. I didn't want them to say like, oh yes, Nicola, it was all very nice, thank you very much. So so Faith took on that responsibility and they still said nice things. So we're now in this position where we have created this course, and we have literally just set the dates to be able to deliver our first kind of public-facing course. And we've made some tweaks to it based on the feedback. The main thing being that we're now actually going to make it a slightly longer course. So originally we'd envisaged a 5-week course, but one of the key things that people fed back to us was that actually having a little bit more time to be able to implement was beneficial. And so we're going to make it a 10-week course. That doesn't mean that there's more content, but it does mean that people just have that little bit more time to digest. And then it'll be fortnightly live catch-up sessions where we can discuss how those things are going. We're also hoping that at some point we'll be partnering with NEAR, who are looking at that sort of community of practice and sustainability and, kind of ongoing monthly meetings. So that's where we're up to at the moment. One of the ladies that was involved in our steering group, Sue, was a fantastic asset to our project. She cared for both of her parents with dementia, and she's a prolific writer. She finds technology very confusing, so she didn't join any of our team sessions, but she and I would have phone calls in between, and every time I emailed out the steering group minutes or agenda, I would get flooded back with various emails from her. She writes a lot of poetry, and lots of her poetry is included in our course. And this was something that she wrote while she was involved in the project. This is her poem. She says, "To put up a fight is exhausting if you're battling on your own. But with well-trained troops beside me, each skirmish can be won. Then with time to regroup and recover, the foe can be faced for another round, so I can move forwards a little bit, or at least hold on to my ground. But the time will come, who knows just when, that my wish to fight gives way to surrender, taking me to a blissful place with Namaste Care so tender." And I felt like that was a lovely gift that Sue gave to us as part of this project. There are some guidance booklets which we created from the very first project that we did. These are quite comprehensive. They're free to download. We have one which is sort of about implementing within a care home. If you're not in a care home, there's the same principles really you can use if you're implementing into a hospice or a hospital or into a community setting. And you can download them. You can find the film and a longer version of that film on our blog website, and if you want to be nerdy and read some journal articles, then you can do that too.
That's it for this episode of the UK Dementia and Palliative Care Conference 2025 podcast. A huge thank you to our sponsors, Majestic Holidays, Wallens, Amica Care, MC Hearing and Audley, and to Dementia UK for their invaluable support. This series is recorded and produced by iNarrator and proudly hosted by Rowcroft Hospice. Links to resources mentioned are available in the show notes. If you found this discussion valuable, please share it and stay tuned for more thought-provoking conversations. Until next time, take care.